So the topic of this video, guys, is a very direct and important question, which is this one. How do I surrender and trust? Why did they ask that? Because I speak about this quite frequently. You need to surrender to this reality. You need to trust this reality. Because if you were to sum up spirituality in one word, it would be surrender. All the peace and happiness you're going to experience comes from letting go, surrender, getting into a state of not knowing. We want to feel in control. We want to know everything. This is all from the ego. When the ego surrenders, sees through the illusion of free will, surrenders, gets into a state of unknowing, there's all your peace and happiness. You're going to be in the flow state. And I chuckled when I heard this question because it's like to ask, how do I surrender? How do I trust? It's like if I was to put a glass of poison on the table and say to you, don't drink this. And you were to say, how do I not drink it? How do I not drink the poison? Don't do anything. Now, ultimately, this won't help you because I'm only saying that because ultimately, there's nothing you can do to surrender. There's nothing you can do to trust. Trust and surrender will happen in its own time. The very fact you're into spirituality is such a blessing. The process has started. You're into these teachings. You're going to get to the point where even if you leave these teachings, something's going to pull you back into it. That's my personal experience. I would get into these teachings, think they're ridiculous, run back to the world, got pulled back in even deeper. Would run away again, got pulled back even deeper. So the process has started. This will inevitably end with you being in a state of peace and surrender. But right now I'm sounding very neo-advaita, like there's no one here, nothing to do. But bringing it back to you feel like there's a person with something to do, what can you do? How can you trust and surrender to this reality, which will bring you all this peace and happiness? The first thing you need to do is, what type of mindset do you have? Do you have the thinking mindset or the devotional mindset? It doesn't even matter which mindset you have. Everyone's got a different makeup in their mind. For instance, I'm very analytical. That's why I got into the path of knowledge. Always asking why. I need to know the why before I do anything. And I've always admired, I wish I was like this, heavenly devotional. So many religious people, they don't need all this intellectual talk. What's all this one appearing separate, free will is an illusion? I don't care. I just love. I love God. I want to serve a God. I love that mindset. I wish I was like that. But for me, it's always thinking. So if you've got a lot of thinking, got a lot of questions, how can you trust and surrender? Through the path of knowledge. This is what it's all about. Using this intellect to really investigate what's happening in this reality. Using the intellect to do self-inquiry. When you realize your true self has non-objective qualities, I'm not going to get into self-inquiry. I've got a non-duality for beginners playlist. If you're new to these videos, check that out. Self-inquiry. Going through every layer of your objective experience, realizing you have non-objective qualities. Once you see that, intuit that, it's clear as day to you, your true self, non-objective qualities. All objective qualities are appearing in time and space. Reality is happening in 4 dimensions. 3 dimensions of space, 1 dimension of time. Consciousness would be the 5th dimension. The mind is in 4 dimensions of reality that I just mentioned. It can't comprehend the 5th dimension. The 5th dimension is that which emanates these 4 dimensions, apparently. You need to intuit that. Once you intuit that, your true self, non-objective qualities, which means it performs no action. It's in a total state of peace. Once you use the intellect to intuit that, and it's as clear as day, all this trust and surrender will come naturally. I have intuited this many years ago. So how does this apparent person that I'm ultimately not living this life. What does it do to surrender, to trust? I've mentioned this before in other videos. Why do I still meditate then? What's the point of meditation? Because it's training this egoic self to be in the state of flow. When all this attention, this egoic self has attention. It can direct attention here. For instance, look. Focus your attention on this. I'm about to clap. Focus your attention on my clapping. Your attention goes there. Focus your attention on your breath. Focus your attention on the tingling feelings in your fingers. Now focus your attention on the feeling of existence. The feeling I'm alive. What I'm trying to show you with this is, this egoic self has reflected consciousness. It can direct attention like a spotlight. So once this egoic self, with its intellectual knowledge of oneness and is satisfied, realizes this, what should it be doing? Where should it focus this attention that it almost exclusively focused on thinking? Thinking about me, mine, my life. All this here, which causes suffering. Where is it safe to put its attention once it realizes non-dual truth intellectually? The feeling of existence. How do I live life? My default state of being is just in the feeling of existence, mindfulness. That's what meditation's for, again. Practicing this habit. Because our habit is to think. Mindfulness and meditation will put you in the habit of, when your attention is not required by the world, into the feeling of existence. When practical thoughts come, think practical solutions. You don't need to think shoulda, coulda, woulda, why this, why that. Why? It's a waste of time. Look at it like this. There's a problem. Here's what we usually do. Problem, complain about the problem, get annoyed. Why did it happen? It shouldn't have happened. Eventually, solution. See what's happening here? Problem, a lot of complaining, a lot of suffering, and then inevitably a solution has to come. So what do I do now? Problem, don't think about the problem, get to the solution. If there's no solution, what can be done? See, very simple, practical. You can train yourself to do this. And why can you train yourself to do this? When you realize ultimately, I have non-objective qualities. I ultimately perform no action. This reality is taking care of itself. Life is just living life. Consciousness is pure being, pure knowing, pure intelligence. Consciousness is taking care of all of this. In devotional language, God's taking care of all of this. That's what gives you that realization of trust and surrender. You're ultimately not doing anything. You're not ultimately thinking anything. All thoughts are appearing. All feelings are appearing. This reality is living itself. Once that clicks intellectually, there's this deep sense of peace and surrender. And this apparent person, which can direct its apparent attention, where does it direct it? Into the feeling of existence. Sit with the feeling of existence and trust. If a problem arises, a solution arises. The thought of a solution always comes. I just put my attention in the feeling of existence when I get up, and I tell myself, let's find out what happens today. I don't know what I'm going to think. I don't know what I'm going to feel. I don't know who's going to call me, text me, knock on the door. Every experience leads to more experience. Every experience leads to thoughts, which leads to feelings, which leads to more thoughts, which leads to action. There's just a flow of experience. So if you're intellectually inclined, the path of knowledge. That's going to intellectually convince you that it's safe, in quotes, not to think about life so much. That you're safe and you can trust putting all that attention, feeling of existence, let life happen. And here's what the ego will do. I just want to clear this up too. When the ego hears, go with the flow, let life happen, what? Not go to work, not go out, not interact with people? No, what I mean by going with the flow is trust and understand All your actions will happen of their own accordance. All your thoughts will happen. Like I said, a problem happens. Just surrender and trust that a solution will come. It always comes. I don't know how old you are, but I'm middle-aged. Looking back at my life now, I've realized, once you realize all this stuff, life has just always been living life. Ultimately, life is just a flow of experience that this thinking mind has suffered so much in the past, thinking about this, stressing about that, wondering, is this going to be okay? Is that going to be okay? Everything's going to be okay. Everything is taking care of itself, just like in nature. Nothing else in nature's thinking. Plants are growing and dying. Animals are born and dying. Nature's in a flow. Why do you think you're separate from nature? The only thing that separates you from this reality is the thought. I'm separate. I'm performing these actions. These are my actions. These are my thoughts. It's all an illusion. It's an illusion that once you see through, still continues. You still say, I'm doing this, you're doing that. You shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done this. It all continues. There's no problem. You just have this deep sense, I'm not doing anything. That's where all the sigh of relief comes deep down. Peace and happiness. Surrendering and trusting through the intellect. If you don't like all this talk, a lot of people don't like all this intellectual talk, and I admire these people that are just heavenly devotional. And even when you have this non-dual knowledge, I strongly recommend devotion. I still devote. I still pray before meditation to a higher power, a higher intelligence. We could call that God. Because there's no way around this. You can see it. There is an intelligence running through this reality. You don't have to call it God. You don't have to put it into a form, but you can't deny it. There's an intelligence here. So myself, before I meditate, have this little prayer. I don't even call it, or sometimes I call it God. I'm very loose with my terminology, but I just internally surrender and say, look, I trust today I'm going to do everything I'm supposed to be doing. Think everything I'm supposed to be thinking. It's being guided and directed by your intelligence, whatever I'm speaking to. You know what I'm saying? Okay, let's call it a God. I sit in meditation and say, look, this divine intelligence, this divine presence is going to guide all my actions, all my thoughts, going to make me think the right things, feel the right things. I'm surrendering to it. And then I just sit with the feeling of existence. So I do my little prayer before I meditate. Because you can't, like I said, can't get around it. There is a divine, I'm not even going to say the word divine. There is a flow, an intelligence. What is it? It's consciousness. Consciousness, non-objective qualities. If anything was to be classed as God, it would be consciousness. And by the way, that just reminds me, there are 4 Mahavakyas in Hinduism to represent the 4 Vedas. And the first Mahavakya from the Rig Veda, the oldest of the 4 Vedas, is Pragyana Brahma, which roughly translates into consciousness equals God. Consciousness equals Brahman. Consciousness equals God. Because consciousness satisfies all the definitions of God. All-powerful, all-knowing, infinite, eternal. In fact, all these qualities that appear in time and space, don't they? Infinite is through endless space. Eternal is through endless time. Consciousness is that which emanates all these qualities. That's why, if anything was to satisfy the definition of God, it's consciousness. And again, that's why the first Mahavakya is Pragyana Brahma. Consciousness is God. Consciousness is this divine intelligence. It is all-powerful, all-knowing. All power, all-knowing, all intelligence appears in it and is made from it. That's why I internally devote to this intelligence. I appear as a small self. I devote internally to this bigger self. That will be a whole other video. And as always, I go off into these little rants. But actually, that's good because it leads me to the next part of this explanation. Path of knowledge, do what I said. Investigate the feeling of your true, investigate the feeling of free will. Realize the nature of your true self, non-objective qualities intellectually. Do that. Then you can surrender and trust. Perfectly leads me to the next point. If you don't like all this talk and you're heavily devotional in nature, why trust and surrender? Because when you truly believe and love a higher power, a God of your choice, Krishna, Jesus, whatever, when you truly surrender and love a God, they say in, just say Christianity, God gave you free will. What do they ultimately want you to do? Take this free will that God's given you and ultimately say, look, thank you for this free will. I'm freely giving it back to you, God. I love and trust you so much. You take care of life. Please, I don't know what to do. I'm confused. I'm misguided. I'm trusting you. I love you so much. I'm trusting you. I'm surrendering to this free will. You take care of it, please. Please guide my life. Please guide my actions. Please give me the strength that no matter what happens in this life, give me the strength to forbear it. Please give me good things in life, please. But if it doesn't happen, I'm okay with that. That's the true meaning of surrender. Sure, pray and ask God for things. And you will get so many blessings through prayer. I've seen it in my life personally. My partner's a Christian. Very devotional. And it's very inspiring. And I pray in my own way. But what I'm saying is, if you pray to this divine intelligence, whatever form you want to call it, you will get blessings. The issue is most people don't believe this. Atheists, I don't believe in a God. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, which is meant to be God incarnate, has this quote: however my devotees approach me, I approach them in the same way. Everyone is following my path knowingly or unknowingly. In other words, if you believe there is no God, God gives you what you want. No God. If you sincerely believe there's a God and you pray and devote, you'll experience the presence of God. You'll experience blessings. Hand on heart, I'm saying this. I believe that wholeheartedly because I know this reality has a divine intelligence running through it, is the fabric of it. And however you approach this reality, it approaches you in the same way. So when you submit, trust, surrender to this God that you believe in, God won't steer you wrong. And out of love, you won't even care. Because when you love someone or something, you just want to do what makes them happy, don't you? If you love someone now or have loved someone, or if you ever love someone in the future, you'll have this feeling. Devotion, service, surrender. I want to do whatever makes you happy. That's where your love comes from. That's where your happiness comes from, making them happy. So true lovers of God trust, surrender, devote, and their life will ultimately be a blessing. Now, this doesn't mean objectively like they're going to become rich and get all these blessings all the time. Internally, they'll be blessed. They'll come to the realization, no matter what happens in this reality, I'm totally at peace. That's the ultimate blessing God will give you through the path of devotion or knowledge. So I hope this answers your question. Just to review, what should you do? First and foremost, how is your mind made up? Are you very intellectually inclined? If so, path of knowledge. Investigate this feeling of free will. Investigate your true self. Once you've come to the realization that this is all an illusion, the illusion still continues, but you'll feel calm and peaceful in the knowledge, I'm ultimately doing nothing. Life is just living life. You don't even have to bring God into this. But if you don't like all this talk, forget about it. If you're heavily devoted in nature, you just have a lot of love in your heart, build a relationship with a higher power. Ask this higher power for blessings, all that kind of good stuff. But you eventually want to get to the point where you love this higher power so much, you say to it, I love you so much. You've given me free will. I don't know how to manage my life. I keep making mistakes. This free will, God, can you take it? Please take care of me. I'm your child. Take care of me. I'm surrendering, devoting to you. God will have you covered. And you'll get the same feeling of peace and surrender. So, the path of knowledge, path of devotion, there's no way around it. Ideally, you want both. That's what I try to cultivate. You want wisdom and love. And then you'll be in a state of peace and happiness. Because what's the reverse of that? Ignorance and hate. Most people are living in this life with ignorant knowledge and hate in their heart. No wonder it's miserable. So you need wisdom and love. My humble personal opinion of some guy sitting in a room. But yeah, guys, I hope that helps, eh? And thank you so much for the question. Take care.